My girlfriend and I are in a restaurant night before last. And whenever we go to a restaurant, Nina strategically decides where we want to sit. And of course, I couldn't care less, just bring the food. And so she's scouring around where she wants to sit, and she chooses this room aside from the main room. And nobody else is sitting there, and she chooses the table, we sit there. And there's a mild odor, kind of like rotten eggs, although it's kind of faint. And a waiter comes over and says, "Excuse me," a different one that sat us down. "Excuse me, you probably don't want to sit here because we have a busted pipe over here and there's an odor." And I looked at Nina and I said, "Oh, I thought it was coming from her." And so the waiter cracks up. I've been to their restaurant before. And as he sits us down at the other table, he says, "You know, you are very, very funny. And too bad you didn't employ your humor during your campaign for governor. I think you would have done better." And I said to him, "Did you go to any of my rallies?" He said, "No." I said, "I start out with a joke. I end a joke. I sprinkle it in through jokes. I spontaneously will say something to somebody in the audience if he or she says something or doesn't react a certain way or reacts a certain way." I said, I was my own personality. And in a 45 minute speech, and CBS, and NBC, and LA Times, and all the others are there, and I cut on the nightly news, and I get home, and there is 20 seconds of me talking about my opposition to vaccine mandates. They defined me. I was myself as I campaigned. And I'll tell you something else. Every single time I did an event for supporters where I gave a 20-minute speech and had a half hour of Q&A, nobody ever asked me about the issues that people in the left-wing media are concerned about. And that brings me to an article that was written in the LA Times today by a man named George Skelton, Skelton. George Skelton is considered to be the dean of columnists here in California. Outside of California, you probably haven't heard of him, but he's the man here in California. He's probably 80, 85 years old. He's been writing a column for the LA Times for a good 40 or 50 years. Everybody knows who he is. He is a trendsetter. And I interviewed him twice during my campaign. And I was somewhat surprised by how fair and balanced his articles were. So I opened the LA Times, which I read so you don't have to this morning. And here's the article that Mr. Skelton wrote. Headline: Newsom's waning voter approval might have given the GOP a shot, but they blew it in the recall. And goes on to talk about how Newsom's numbers are falling because of crime, because of homelessness, because of the way he's handled the pandemic, and then trashes me. And they said that they had a chance to possibly recall this guy, but then Elder entered the race. Right-wing talk show host Larry Elder, quote, "Many Democrat voters ignored the contest to replace Newsom if he was recalled, leaving the irrelevant choice mainly to Republicans. And they overwhelmingly preferred the conservative who advocated zero minimum wage, opposed abortion rights, and suggested that descendants of slave owners be paid reparation for loss of their ancestors' property," end of quote. So that's Larry Elder. And in all of the Q&As I did, the town halls I did, when I spoke at churches, I had Q&A. No one ever asked me my opinion about the minimum wage. Abortion never came up. And no one ever asked me what my position was on reparations. Ever. And when I gave interviews to the mainstream newspaper and they brought up these kinds of things, and they get them because I've written 1,200 articles over since April of 1998 on various topics. I've been on radio almost 30 years. That's 27,000 hours of radio. They scour over all this stuff and they find something to talk about that they want to talk about. And if I said, well, I'm here to talk about crime, I'm here to talk about homelessness, I'm here to talk about the way Gavin Newsom shut down the state in a more draconian fashion than did the other 49 governors, while sitting up there at the French Laundry restaurant with the very people that drafted the mandates, not wearing masks, not engaging in social distancing, his own kids enjoying in-person private education, the 80% of the kids in government schools who are black and brown here in California were denied a whole year of in-person education. They were already behind. And then Then they'll write, well, elder ducked the question. Elder dodged the question. Elder dodges hard questions. What do any of these things have to do with why I'm running in the recall election? But let's take these. Zero minimum wage. I gave an interview to a Fox local reporter. You support a zero minimum wage. I said, have you ever taken economics? She said, yes. I said, okay, who's your favorite economist? Blank stare. I said, you can't name a single economist? She said, well, the one I took my course from in college. I said, what is his or her name? Blank stare. I said, you can't name a single economist? Blank stare. I said, you know who Paul Krugman is? She said, no. I said, he's probably the most famous economist in the world because he's got a column in the New York Times. He's left wing. He once wrote that the minimum wage was a bad idea. He's done a 180, but he once wrote minimum wage is a bad idea. You know who Adam Smith is? She said, no. I said, you don't know who Adam Smith is? She said, no. I said, he is the founder of modern economics. He wrote a book in 1776, which is the Bible of modern economics. You never heard of him? She said, no. I said, you ever heard of Milton Friedman? She said, no. I said, you ever heard of Jonathan Gruber? She said, no. Left wing. Left wing. He is the co-father of Obamacare. He once wrote negatively about the minimum wage. This is Economics 101. But more than that, what does this have to do with why I'm running in the recall election? What am I going to do? Pass a law that says there should be zero minimum wage? The legislatures aren't going to pass it, and it doesn't matter anyway. Are you going to work for zero? It's irrelevant. And by the way, they took that part of the interview out when they posted it because it made her look bad.